Welcome to the Honest Designers Show, your transparent look into life as a modern designer. My name's Tom and I'm the founder at designcuts.com, and this week I'm joined by fellow Brit and hand lettering artist Ian Barnard, our American retro design expert Dustin Lee, and the illustrating machine that is Lisa Glanz. In this week's episode, we talk all about how to get feedback for your design work. Quality critiques can be one of the best ways to improve as a designer, but often truly useful insights can be pretty hard to come by. Today, we look at the most effective ways to get the constructive feedback that you're looking for to drive your work forward. Let's get into the show. Okay, so this week we're talking all about getting feedback as a designer, and I think this is something we've all benefited from, right? Like, feedback can be really, really useful. No one wants to design in a bubble, so to speak. And I know when I bounced ideas off talented designers, I know it can be really, really helpful to drive a project forward, or just in a wider sense, even get better as a designer. Like, I think it can be one of the biggest, best ways to actually improve at your craft. What do you guys think?
Yeah, definitely. I think besides getting feedback from people, your peers, your design peers, I think it's also important to get feedback from the people that you're actually designing for. I think a lot of designers make that mistake. They forget that side of things. And I think especially if you're doing things like packaging, newsletters and that kind of thing, if it's difficult to read, then you haven't kind of like fulfilled the brief. But besides the good thing of like getting feedback from your peers and knowing that you are either on the right track design wise, I think it is quite important to, at least the man on the street needs to be able to kind of read whatever it is that you've designed, or it's easy to kind of manipulate, move around in a website, that kind of stuff. So that's also quite important, I think.
So you're saying it's not just the fancy designers who should value their feedback, like it's the clients, it's the man on the street, it's
definitely
everyone.
Yeah.
So yeah, I completely agree, and I think that gives you a more rounded basis to improve, right? Because design touches everyone.
I think design that doesn't work is not great design, because it needs to work. All of what we do is to solve problems and to promote products, promote ideas, whatever it is. But if that doesn't work, then it's not going to be a successful piece of design. So yeah, it's good, like Lisa said, it's good to get a variety of feedback so that you get you're able to get the best piece of work possible, really.
Yeah, for sure. And not all feedback is equal, right?
No.
I know this is something we've touched on before, but the quality of the feedback is so key, because if you take everything to heart, like, you could get a troll on social media versus like the best person in your industry or within your particular craft. They're completely different ends of the spectrum, and you should apply relevant weighting to those bits of feedback coming in. So I work with Matt, our creative director, who's a hell of a web designer. I value his feedback a lot more than, I don't know, sorry if you're listening, Mum, but no, actually that's harsh. She provides very good feedback, so if you are listening, I do value it. But you know what I mean. If it was like a random family member who didn't get design,
I've noticed if you just get feedback from designers, a lot of times what they're looking at is what makes a great looking dribble shot, or what's going to look great in your portfolio, and they'll make something looks killer. And you've seen this where it looks great on Dribbble, and then you put it onto the actual brand, or you see the website where they've put it, it looks totally weird and bizarre. It's crazy. So it looks good in their portfolio. It doesn't look good in the client's stuff. So it's important to get clients, or more importantly, probably the end user for the client, have them look at it, make sure it makes sense to them and it fits into that context.
Yes,
and I think
100%.
I think it's valuable to get feedback throughout the process, because if you just wait until the end, then it's a lot more work to put in those features rather than as the process is going along and getting regular feedback through the process rather than just the one-off at the end. And it also hurts more as well if you get through, you put all this work in and then suddenly you get feedback.
You got to start again.
Well, that letter A you put there doesn't work. And you're like, oh, you know. And so, yeah, I think it's really good to, get constant feedback.
That's kind of where having a portfolio that really shows your work, the kind of work you do, can be useful. We all have strong portfolios that fit a certain type of style. I know when I was first starting, I did all sorts of stuff. I was trying to be a jack of all trades, and I would send my work to people, and they would be shocked at what they got, because it was totally different than anything else I'd done, because I was always throwing out random stuff. So I think it can be really helpful to show them or let them have a really clear idea. Make sure you're both on the same page before you do all the work. This is kind of riffing off of Ian's idea, essentially, of setting the expectation early instead of regretting it later.
Yeah, for sure. So if we're all agreed that feedback is helpful to guide us, what's the best way to get it? Because I think certainly you can put your stuff out there on social media or whatever, and you can expect some feedback to come in. But if you're really looking for constructive feedback and quality feedback, I feel it doesn't just happen by magic. Often you need to ask for it, and you need to ask the right people, and you need to ask in the right kind of ways. So what have you guys found to be really effective?
Being very specific in the feedback that you need or want, really, as well. Because like you can, if you just open question, what do you think?
Sure.
You'll get a load of random stuff that will be really unhelpful. And I suppose specifically say, do these, take from me would be something about lettering. Do these letters work well together? It's for a certain brand. Does it align with said brand's, focus and stuff like that? So I suppose it's being specific. The more specific you can be, the better the feedback will be.
Yeah, completely. You almost guide them, right?
Yeah, exactly. I also choose the people, is what we were saying earlier on, Tom, about choosing what kind of feedback I want, whether it's going to be like more of the design side, like a more pro design feedback, or whether it's going to be like a man on the street kind of feedback that I need. So then I choose my person accordingly, For example, Cliff, my other half, I will go to him if I want a general first impression feedback. Because he's brutally honest. He tells me exactly what he thinks. Sometimes it's horribly
I hate that
brutally
buddy.
honest.
He goes, I hate that buddy. Sorry.
Yeah. So from that point of view, he's my kind of first person that I go to just for like the first impact. And then if I want kind of more in-depth stuff, then you can approach somebody, that has maybe more illustration background or design background and get more of a design input. So I think it's important to choose who you go to if you want like specific things. But then, as Ian said, you can also on social media you can ask specific questions, and that's quite a good way to get specific feedback.
I did have a question to bring up on the subject of feedback. A lot of people I've heard complain about their art directors tend to step in and give feedback even when they feel like the feedback's not necessary, just to justify their job. That's how I've heard graphic designers describe it. Like right. It's not necessary. They just say it. I'm curious, is that true, do you think? And how do you handle that kind of feedback when it's coming from your art director and you think it's wrong?
Personally, I think if it's your art director and they're your superior, the kind of structure infers in most cases you should listen to them, because there's probably a reason why they're in that position. And even if you don't agree with or like their feedback, and even if they are wrong, you're in a pretty tough position. The best you can hope for, if they are flat out wrong, is to just calmly kind of talk them through why you feel differently. But ultimately, it's going to be their decision. But what I would say on unwanted feedback is, I think often like groupthink can descend. So if you're with a group of people and say, hey, what do you guys think? And then suddenly everyone's like shouting out different things. I think that's where feedback can not be very helpful. Mm-hmm. So I would usually recommend like one-on-one feedback, because I think you get a bit more depth from it.
I've noticed too, if you can prove to a client that something's effective, it'll often
Yes.
really help to change a mind if you can show them customers and say, look how the customer responded to this. That can be a really positive way to influence or get your point across. Or maybe they're right and it changes your opinion. You realize that they had an insight you didn't, which happens all the time.
Yeah, to be honest, I've had so many clients who are not designers, but they give me feedback and I actually run with it and it ends up being so much better.
Right.
It's like I can. They wouldn't be able to make it look how I can, but I'll take like a basic concept where they're like, oh, I'm not sure about that. Try this angle, and even if it's a bit like, oh, like back to the drawing board, when I do it, it always results. In fact, I think I've pretty much never had it where I've listened to client feedback and then revised my project and it's been worse.
Really? Wow.
yeah,
you're
like
lucky.
it's always been a positive for me. But
That's amazing. You
I
must
suppose
have
that's it, right? Having the
yeah,
skill to be able to
skill.
do that and make
Yeah.
what they say into something even stronger is a skill for a designer.
It's a
It
bit
is.
of a sort of humility in there as well. Just like, well, this is my design. It's going to be the best. You know, I don't, you know.
Yeah.
well, that's what I open with, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is hard because like sometimes it seems like criticism. You know, feedback can seem like, you know, oh, they're
Yeah, it's a
criticizing my
personal
work,
attack.
they don't like my work, and they think it's rubbish. But I think that's why you have to be specific. Otherwise, you just go, well, I hate it. And you go, well, why do you hate it? And then also like, oh, I don't like red. Well, why didn't you tell me at the beginning you didn't like red? And so it's again that sort of communication, making sure that you're pinpointing things through the process, or even at the beginning, you know, so that when
we
you ask
yeah
for
we
feedback-
talked about that on a recent
Yeah.
episode, actually, didn't we, with the client questionnaires.
Mm.
And this highlights why those are so important, because it should never get to the point of, oh, why didn't you tell me you didn't like that? Because
Yeah.
you should have gone through all the aesthetics that they actually were drawn to early on to avoid those headaches later. But yeah, I think on the subject of being specific and kind of leading them towards feedback, as you say, it's not what do you think, but it would be similar to that initial client feedback form, or not feedback form, you know, like trying to guide the project in the early
Yeah.
stages. It's the same with feedback. So how does this design make you feel? And, you know, even like what are 3 things you like about the concept, or, you know, what do you think about the colors? Like just trying to give them any kind of direction, because if you leave it open-ended, not only will the feedback be less useful for you, but actually it can feel quite daunting to them, I think. If it's really open-ended, they think, oh, well, I don't really know what this designer wants to hear.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense. Here's what I think of that yellow.
Yeah, for sure. And for me, the other sort of, I guess this goes now with fulfilling briefs and presenting work. I always used to keep the amount of designs. You know, clients always say, okay, I expect 10 different variations of my logo or whatever. I made it clear that I didn't do that. So I don't know if you know, I know this is controversial. Some people say you got to do what the client wants in that regard. But for me, I kept it down to two variations, and that was it. And then it also makes the feedback process easier. It's like, do you like A or do you like B? You know, and then what is it
C.
about A that you prefer? And instead of do you like A, B, C, D, or E, or F? You know.
Yes,
So,
I
yeah.
think did we talk about this before, where we were talking about the jams?
No, but I know what you're going to say.
Okay, you know this, Tom?
marketing example. Yeah, I know this, but go.
I'll make it short. So they did a test and they had 2 farmers market booths. One had 3 jams, one had 20 jams, and you could sample them. And they looked at which one made the most sales. And it turned out that the one with 3 jams made more sales because people became overwhelmed by the options
Yeah.
of the 20 jams, which kind of goes with what you're saying.
And I actually really like that, because that is a great way to structure feedback, because it's still a little bit vague if it's like, what do you think of X? Whereas it's a lot better if you say, choose one of these 2.
Yeah.
And that's something you can very easily show to multiple people. And Ian, I know we've talked about this. You can do that on social media. So that's a lot better. I've posted work before, and I know you have, where you just say, what do you guys think?
Yeah.
And you don't get much feedback because they probably are paralyzed with choices of what they could say. Whereas if you say, you know, this is design A and this is design B, leave a comment below, A or B, suddenly you get, it's like doing a survey or something. You get so many comments and so much
So
feedback coming
true.
in.
Yeah,
And often there is a clear front runner.
and I think because I did 4 choices when I was doing some lettering on a violin. I did 4 different designs. I really had a clue which one to do, but giving them an option that is literally just one letter, so it was A to D. Some people could just put A, you know, or B, whatever they want. But then other people put the letter that they like, or say, well, actually, I quite like some of the lettering, you know, the certain word from D, but with the style of A. And so you suddenly get that once you give a platform that anyone can put, you know, the low level feedback, which is just a letter, and then there's other people who have more confidence in giving feedback and they can add to that. And it was those, and it ended up, it was a combination of 2 of them. And it was only because of people saying what they liked from certain ones and putting that together. Because, like, for me, I'm not great with words. So if it gives you the confidence just to put something down, and then you think, oh, actually, you know, it gets the ball rolling. Sometimes for us, it's just, you know, with a lot of things, it's just getting started. And if you can make that entry into giving feedback easy, then people can then build upon it. Whereas if it's just something where they have to explain straight off the bat, that's when it becomes hard, or you get less feedback. So,
and it should be hard. It should be almost like gamified, you know, where it feels. Seriously, like because you're making it like a little interactive thing they can participate in, and it should be fun.
Yeah,
and they get to be part of the outcome as well. So them choosing what the design should be means that that was something that I. You know, you were part of, and you're like, you feel part of the end product.
I'm going to put this out as a listener challenge, but for anyone who's currently posting their work, trying to get feedback on social media, if you haven't tried it, try that approach where you post 2 options and ask people to choose one. And I guarantee if you've never done that, you will get more feedback on that post than any that you've done previously that ask for general feedback. It really works.
Great idea.
Yeah.
I would say, going back to the whole idea of giving the options, that you almost have to backtrack to the beginning and make sure it's a good fit when you first start, and know to say that it's not a good fit sometimes with a customer, because I've had situations where it's just not a good match, and no matter what you do, it's not going to make them happy because it's not you. If the client doesn't love Lisa Glenn style illustrations and they want Andy Warhol style crazy illustrations or something like that, no matter what Lisa does, they're probably not going to be happy with it. So there's a huge benefit to qualifying people in advance. That way, like Ian said, I love the idea of it feeling like a game, like Tom and Ian said, where it's fun and you're going back and forth and giving options, and it feels like an enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
I think it makes them excited about the work you're doing, and just,
I think enjoyable is
awesome.
the key word there, because it can be from both sides, but especially the designer, it can be like a lot of anxiety around that.
Quite
Yes.
daunting.
I actually often hated that bit where you'd really enjoyed the work and then you send it over for feedback and kind of you're there with bated breath.
Yeah.
Being like, oh, please don't destroy my hopes and dreams.
Exactly. Yeah.
And,
yeah.
and it's
Yes.
actually there's a lot of stress associated with that.
So you get that when the email comes in, the butterflies hit your stomach. You're
Yeah,
afraid
you
to
almost
open
don't wanna read
you
it.
wait,
It's
and you
horrible.
prepare yourself.
Go off and have another drink of coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then if it does
And
come
by
back
coffee, you
and
mean
it's-
booze. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
An Irish coffee.
Shut up. And if it's bad feedback, you actually feel like your soul has been crushed. It's
Well, yeah.
it's
For me, I just
horrible.
got angry. I know that's not good.
You just got angry,
Did.
really.
Yeah.
Again, we're breaking the illusion of sweet Lisa Glantz for everyone listening.
I think
don't
we
know.
need to get if we do start filming, we can get some Lisa Gland's GIFs going on, animated GIFs to go on the web. Throwing the
Should.
no,
Please.
stop your bad feedback. Throwing it out the window.
You wouldn't like
We
it
need
when
Lisa
she's
Glenn
angry.
stickers that we can do on our iPhone messages.
Yeah.
By the way, Lisa,
Yeah.
I actually already recorded the intro for this episode, and where I introduced you guys, I said something along the lines of, and the machine that is Lisa Glenn, because I had to get that in there.
Have we already mentioned the fact that I'm a machine?
Lisa the
You are a
machine
machine.
glands.
Oh, goodness.
Okay,
Yeah.
so on the subject of feedback, any other ways you guys can think to elicit better feedback? So actually, I've got a quick one while it's fresh in my mind. So we're talking about being leading, which I think is leading in the sense of getting specific. So what do you think of this specific element can be helpful, but you don't want to be leading where you lead them towards the answer you want to hear.
Oh, yeah. That's
So
important.
if you said to someone like, let me know if this design makes you feel really happy inside, because that's your intention, you're kind of planting the seed of trying to get
Yeah.
them to say that.
Yeah.
Whereas if you said like, what mood does this evoke, you're going to get a more honest answer.
Yeah.
So that would be one thing. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything else that kind of springs to your guys' minds.
Yeah, making sure that the information's there. So, say, for instance, you're doing a logo that's, you say, here's a coffee shop logo. And you're like, but you need to, I suppose, look at what the market it might be appealing to. Because if you say this is a coffee shop logo, what do you think? They go, like, it's a great coffee shop logo. But if you're not telling the specifics of like demographic it's going to or where it's going to be placed.
Oh,
or
good point.
And
Yeah.
and because all these things determine, how well the design is going to be used. If you don't give them, then you might come out with a good design, but it might not be applicable to
That particular market.
yeah.
Actually, that's a great point, because I don't think we've touched on this yet, but using mock-up templates is something I always did, and I know Matt on our team does, and it's so effective because you literally mock up a visual where the design would be shown off. So it
Yeah.
could be on the side of a bus or simply on a phone screen if it's for a for a phone app or something like that. And clients often don't have the best imagination. So I think that's half the battle. If you present it in the right way,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
are
'cause
much
you
more
know-
likely to get positive feedback rather than if you just show them like a flat Photoshop file. They're like,
Absolutely.
okay, well, that's nice. But if they can see it in like a palpable kind of reality, that's where
Well,
it really gets them excited about it.
And they will literally be confused and say, I don't understand if it's all a blue background. How is my website going to fit onto this? That sounds silly,
Yeah.
but when you're not a designer, these are things that just don't come to your mind. You don't think like this all day long. So it really, I think, does help to show people real life examples.
Yeah, I also think that it's a way to check your work, because sometimes when I've done mock-ups, I've realized, oh, that actually doesn't work, on that particular thing. So it's a good way to at
Yeah.
least double check you on the right track.
Yeah, and often that will be stuff like legibility and so on.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you put it somewhere and you're like, I really cannot read the slogan on that logo or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah,
Everything looks great when it's surrounded by like 8,000 miles of white space.
yes,
But rarely will
Exactly.
any design be seen like that.
You
Yeah.
could just have a circle and it's beautiful.
yeah,
It's so
What-
minimal and bleak. I love it.
One thing worth bringing up that is trickier for some situations but can be really useful in others is most companies have a database of their customers. If you can get them to let you communicate, or they communicate with some of their best customers and let you share the ideas and say which one feels comfortable to you, which feels like the update, which feels like the company still or the business or the campaign. I've never done anything where I get customer feedback where it has, if you get enough of it, and that can even be 30, 40, 50 people, you'll see patterns happen.
Yeah.
And it'll keep happening, and I've never had that do me wrong. So in situations where you do have a customer that has a database of paying customers that you can get feedback from, that can be a really easy way to make the right decision if you're not sure where to go.
Yeah, and that's relevant. So if you're working on, say, a logo, you can post it on your designer Instagram and you can get feedback. But as you say, that might not be the target demographic.
yeah.
So that's really smart. If you do that, fine. But if you actually do it on your client's platform, you're going to target their audience. And you'd obviously have to get their sign off to do that and talk to their social media person or whatever. But that can definitely be really powerful, I think. And it goes back to that thing of including them in the process. Like no customer is going to hate like having a say in one of their favorite brands, design update. That's
Yeah.
kind of cool to be part of. It's like, hey, I helped choose that. Like,
That's the cool thing, right? You get your influencers for your brand on board. Exactly like you're saying it. It's sort of like when we got to choose the M&M flavor. Did you do that over there in the UK?
It rings a bell.
We have
get
to do similar
crisps
things
a
with
lot.
like crisps or potato chips in your.
Yeah, they'd be like, choose your favorite M&M color, or maybe over there, choose your favorite flavor of crisp, and everyone gets to get involved. They get to get research done for free, and it creates some hype. It's just an interesting, fun way to do it, I think.
It is, and it can be done on a small scale. You don't need to be a huge corporate with focus groups and stuff like that. Social media lets you do it to any sized audience, more or less.
Definitely.
Cool. So how about feedback from your peers? I mean, I actually think this show is a great example of that, because we started this as effectively a mastermind, right? Where we got together to get feedback on whether it's like stuff in our business or design work we're doing or stuff with customers. Like suddenly you've got 3 people who I certainly consider you guys to be experts. And if I jump on a call, each one of you would actually give me something completely different, but really, really useful and really valid.
Yeah.
And I
exactly.
love getting stuff from different angles like that, because I'm going to be blinkered on whatever situation it is. Or if I'm working on a design, there will be loads of stuff that I don't see because I'm so deep into that project. Whereas you guys see it completely fresh for the first time, and you all have completely different backgrounds. So I just think it's like a way to make your work and yourself more diverse, because you're kind of pooling the minds of people in different areas.
The hive mind of genius. Yeah.
Yeah, the hive mind it is.
Yeah, and even if you don't have access to that, which I think it is pretty easy to set up.
It is. Like, if you're a
Yeah.
designer, you probably know other designers online or have designer friends. So
Yeah.
just contact them and be like, can we jump on a call once a
Yeah,
month?
exactly.
Or you
Absolutely.
get like a group email thread or private Facebook group or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And just put your work in there and be like, what do you guys think? And then that actually is going to hold everyone accountable, because you're going to want to give good feedback for others. Otherwise, you wouldn't expect it in return.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? If you never said a word and you put your work out, people might not care. But if you've been like really providing value for your friends or anyone else there, then you're going to hope you get that back.
It could probably be an entirely separate episode, but it would be interesting to have one talking about how designers listening could create their own masterminds together with 4 or 5 other designers and see how that helps them. I know just talking to you all has helped me a lot. It would be interesting to see how that would help listeners if they did the same.
Yeah, I've become the biggest advocate for it through doing this show, to be honest.
Yeah, it can only be positive. I mean, it's just a win-win. Yeah.
And even if it's not your work, for the record, we started this, it became like group therapy every week. Just, we're all just moaning to each other.
I feel like I feel like masterminds always descend into group therapy.
Yeah, because ultimately that's what we all have to deal with.
And I think for people, especially those who are freelancing and work on their own, it's so good to have that human interaction, which, you know, is sometimes hard on social media because it's just sort of text conversations. Whereas sometimes you just need that. Well, it can just be audio or visual as well, just to be able to. There's just something different about a human interaction when you're talking about a bit of work. You know, that instant.
Well, because
feedback.
it's live, isn't it? So you get the back and forth. Like, what do you think of that? Oh, okay. Why is that? Like, oh, I disagree with you, and you can kind of argue it out or like go back and forth. Like,
Yeah. It's more honest.
It's more honest, and you can sense things like tonality as well. So you can be like, "Oh, they sound like they're just trying to appease me, but they actually don't like it," or
Yeah.
something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
One type of feedback we haven't brought up at all is building into your timeline a period for the work to sit for a week or a few days without you looking at it, and then coming back and giving feedback to your own self. I know when I look at something I haven't looked at in a while, I'll see things
Yes.
that were gigantic mistakes or problems I didn't see.
Yeah.
I think that goes back to the whole blinkered thing. And so, like when you're blinkered because you're so deep in a project, you
Oh,
become
right.
blind to a lot of things. So, yes, I love that. I would absolutely advocate that for anyone listening. You like before handing it into the client, I would go away and I'd come back a day or two later.
Yeah.
And actually, Matt on our team, he told me a cool technique where you look away from the screen and then you look back very quickly and see what kind of like a Jim Carrey move.
It reminds me of Zoolander with the blue steel of the look.
Magnum,
Or there's
baby.
the one even where you put it into a mirror and look at a mirror reflection of your work. You'll often see things you didn't see until you reversed it in Photoshop or just print it out and look at it in a mirror or
Yeah.
something.
I
like
found that
all of these different
specifically,
ways.
that technique works really well if you're doing typography, because I've turned something upside down and realised that like maybe the top of my N is completely skew if, but I couldn't see it when it was the right way around. So
Yeah.
It's the same for drawing as well. I don't know if you've done that exercise, Lisa, but
Yeah.
I remember trying to capture someone's likeness in a portrait, and it wasn't really close, but there were like a couple of small likenesses, and then I turned it upside down, and if it's a good drawing, it's meant to hold up, but I turned it
Yeah.
upside down, and it looks like John Merrick, not the person sat opposite me. It's like this
Yeah.
abomination.
Exactly.
going
So what
on.
does that say about the fact that when I reverse my own face, I feel like I look absolutely horrifying?
It's just a bad drawing.
Well, I think the webcam actually does that, Dustin. So if you think of what we've been faced with every week.
yeah, I didn't
imagine what we're
recognise it
seeing
at
every
first.
Well, then we're all handsome devils and beautiful. What's the equivalent for women? You have handsome devils,
Gorgeous.
I don't know.
but you need to add devils on the end or something like that. Anyways, this is off subject.
Yeah.
You handsome devil.
Yeah, that's
so
a good point.
so
Self-feedback is.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
It's almost like tricking yourself into you being the equivalent of another person, because you've got the deep into the project mode, and then you've got the kind of more perhaps technical feedback of seeing it upside down and stuff like that, where you can see things that the shape might be wrong or the structure might be wrong, and then you've got the Zoolander whipping your head back, and that's kind of the like immediate reaction of what stands out to me. So they're all completely different viewpoints, but you need to kind of train yourself to start looking at your work in those different ways.
Yeah,
What,
definitely.
what are you going to say, Lisa? Giggling over
I was
there?
just giggling because I had visions of all these designers, I don't know, upside down in the office, and their boss is coming and saying, "What on earth?"
If you get a hanging bar so you can hang like Batman upside
Yeah.
down and look at your work.
It's like, why didn't you just turn it upside down yourself? You're like, oh, I didn't think of that.
Not the same. Not the same.
New wave design.
Not
I
when the
think about it.
blood's rushing to your head.
Yeah, exactly.
If you have nerves of steel too, here's a great way to get some. If people can see you where they know you'll know who did it, they're going to be a little kinder. If you have nerves of steel, you can always put your work up on Reddit
Oh no, not
or
Reddit.
somewhere like that. They will tear it apart and destroy it. But if a pattern emerges, they might have a point. You'll lose all self-confidence and you might want to jump off a bridge. But you might
at least you
learn
found the
something.
pattern.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe you don't learn anything.
I don't know.
Reddit's very cool, but it's a hard school. I think you can't go in with the thin skin.
No.
Yeah.
I think that is worth touching on though, because I mean I kind of see that as social media, but I've been a member of all kinds of forums, and the quality of member can slide a lot. And so there's some where you'll post your work and it will be, not the most fantastic feedback, shall we say, where people are kind of bringing each other down and it's just a bad atmosphere. And you get other forums that are really supportive, and almost go the other way where people are placating you. Or for example, if I've shared design work on a business forum and people aren't designers there, so they all think it's the best thing since sliced bread. But if I showed you guys, you'd be like, it's a little bit off or something. So I think as with everything we talk about, you need to have the awareness going in. Don't just blindly go in and accept feedback at face value. Kind of think about the audience and the context and all that stuff, because all of that should contextualize the feedback that you're getting back.
And to add to that, think about the motivations of the people you're asking. If you're paying somebody, they work for you, for instance, they're going to be less likely to say something critical
I thought you
about
meant
your work because they want
here's
their job.
Here's $10. Tell me
If
something
it's
nice.
right, if it's someone that goes out to dinner with you or perhaps lives with you and cohabitates with you, they might not want to say something because they want to have a good day later with you. So
Really? I'm
it's-
jealous of your relationship if that's how it works for you.
Yeah,
Lisa, I think
mine's the total opposite.
Yeah, no, we've got brutally honest partners, which is it can be a great thing, to be honest. You can always trust their integrity
Yeah,
and
I
honesty.
must say, I appreciate it more than I get annoyed, but yeah.
But point is, there are conflicts of interest that occur. You have to consider.
Yeah, and also, if you give good feedback, knowing how to give feedback to others will help when you're trying to get feedback from others. And if you're, it's a sort of receptacle. Is that the word?
Reciprocal.
Reciprocal.
A receptacle is like a beaker or a glass.
If you know how to be a cup, then you're going to win. If you know, if it's a two-way thing. It's not just about here's some feedback and then you never give any feedback. If you can be active in the place where you get the feedback, then people are more inclined to give feedback to your own work because it's not just you're taking all the time. And please, no one leave a comment of feedback and then write at the bottom say, but please check my work out in because it
Don't
makes
do that, please don't do that.
the reason why is because it makes all the above comment about your work
null and void.
because it's just a case of you're trying to promote your own self and
Yep.
Yeah.
so please don't do that.
Big on Instagram. Great job. Check out my profile.
Yeah, you find it on everywhere. Behance is littered with it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a very valid point, though, and it will just make you a good person and good member of the design community. But just give selflessly. And I'm actually amazed. I don't know if anyone listening finds this, but I find like creative endeavors actually get virtually no recognition or acknowledgement on traditional social media. So what I mean is within groups of like your friends and people you went to school with. So if people are following Ian, it's because they're into his work and into design. They're going to give feedback. But if you put something on your personal stuff, I find often people just don't care that much because most people don't care about creative stuff. So I've had friends who do like amazing short videos that have been like months of hard labor and I'll get like 2 likes. Whereas as soon as someone's like, oh, I had a bad day at work, everyone's like all over that.
Yeah.
That's a great point because I have friends that do that. I have a friend that's a marine biologist or something like that. Yesterday, she shared a video of the grace of a toad jumping,
Wow.
and I'm sure that kind of thing is fascinating if you do that. And
Yeah,
it was
David
sort of
Attenborough.
fascinating, kind of. But I wouldn't be most likely to heart it or give a lot of in-depth feedback about the gracefulness of the toad. Because I don't know. It's not my bag.
Where are you going with this?
Shame, poor toad.
That you're one of the neglectful masses. No, I seriously, I make a point of leaving the feedback. So, I've got some friends who are making vlogs and they're really good, but often I can't be bothered to sit and watch like a 10 or 15 minute video if I'm rushing around and quite busy, but I will make a point of doing it because I think, well, I'd be really like down if I put something out like that and no one watched it or no one cared. But yeah, and I feel like if you put that out into the world, then you are definitely more likely to get stuff back.
Yeah. It's knowing the platform as well. If you know the strengths and weaknesses of each platform, because posting so often to sort of, I know what's going to work on Facebook. I know what's going to be fed back on Facebook. I know the demographic roughly of all, of Instagram, of Twitter and Dribbble and stuff like that. And knowing them, you wouldn't ask the same bit of feedback on each of those things. Like I did on my own personal one I was trying to name a font. I put it on my personal one and said, I'm trying to find a name font. Can you have any suggestions? And they were like, Barnard font. I was like,
Yeah, what a wordsmith.
Yeah. And so it's just
Wordsmith.
yeah, it's just knowing who's there and what type of, you can get a variety of feedback, but it's knowing how to write the copy that goes with the stuff you're
Yeah.
posting on that feed.
How to harness it the best way.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Can I just say, Tom, you brought up a good point a few shows back. I think it was on a show. You had mentioned that if you're going to look at someone's work on Instagram or Facebook or wherever, just take the time to leave a comment. You're already looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
You're already paying attention to it. So leave the comment because it means so much. Like anytime any of you do that, it means so much to me. So if you're there already looking at it, just leave 2 or 3 sentences of feedback. You've already put your time into it.
Exactly.
I learned that recently, and it was a good point. I'd never occurred to me. So,
although, again, I think people need to be leading, because I leave comments on your guys' stuff all the time, but I rarely actually give you a critique because you're not asking for it. So I'll see your Instagram posts and be like, "Oh, I love this," or "This is so cute," or "This is great," but that's really vague. That's
but
not
if I was
help
asking,
you. That's
I
just
suppose you would.
Yeah, completely. So if you asked on the call, or if you posted up and said, "Guys, like, what's the thing you love about this most or hate about this most," and all the stuff we covered in today's episode, you need to give people that prompt. You need to guide them and encourage them to leave feedback. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. We hope that it helped you to think about some new and effective ways to get quality feedback on your design work. As always, you can find full show notes over at honestdesigners.com, or find us over on iTunes by searching for The Honest Designers Show. If you're feeling inspired by today's episode, we would hugely appreciate it if you took a second to leave a quick review for us over on iTunes. That's all from us, and we'll see you next week for some more design transparency right here on The Honest Designers Show.